What's up, triathletes? Taren here. If you've got one of your first few races coming up, stick around because today I'm going to give you 5 do's and 5 don'ts that you should be doing and don'ting in triathlon races. The first do is to warm up, and how you do this is by going in reverse order of the race. So start with a small run, a small bike, and a small swim. You don't really want to be tiring yourself out in these warm-ups. You basically just want to get to the point of doing maybe 20 to 30 second strides, sprints, intervals, whatever you want to call it, at race pace. By the time the race comes around, you want to have opened up your lungs and your heart so that you're ready to move at your race pace. If you can't get into the water, bring some stretchy cords and make sure that you can move your arms in the fashion that you would once you get out into the swim. The second do is that you should be sighting the swim course. So, assuming that you can get into the water, go out and do a light swim and go to the corners of the buoys and the turns in the water and look on shore and look for tree lines that you can use to sight, because it's going to be really hard to spot those buoys and you don't want to be forced to follow nothing but toes. As we know from previous videos, there's some dumb toes out there. So make sure that you have a sight line that's higher up above the water that you can see without any trouble. The third do is to, in transition 1, make sure that you put on and clip in your helmet before you even touch your bike. And then in transition 2, make sure you rack your bike before unclipping your helmet. Very, very big issues with this. Don't go getting yourself a penalty just by taking on or putting off your helmet before or after you should be. The fourth do is to go through transition 1 and transition 2 from the entrance to the exit, marking exactly where your transition zone is before the race. You want to go into each transition knowing where the entrance and the exit are, what your route is going to be, and make sure that you count which rack and how far down it is. I myself once misplaced my bike and lost about 20 seconds in a race. So don't be like me. Make sure you know exactly where you're going into, out of, and finding your bike. The fifth do is to take in moderate amounts of carb. Moderate being the key term. Do not load up on carbs and Gatorade and electrolyte drinks and water and fluid and all this stuff throughout the race. If your body hasn't been trained to handle a huge amount of food going into your gut, guess what? You're not going to be able to process all that food and carbs and electrolytes going into your gut. So be very moderate. We're going to get into that right meow.
I'm sorry, are you saying meow?
Now the first don't is to don't carb load immensely. Assuming that your first few races are going to be sprints and Olympics, you don't need to be lapping in. You don't need to be just piling on the carbs for days on end and having huge dinners and huge breakfasts before the race. If anything, just have maybe 20 to 30% more carbs and calories in the day before. If anything, it doesn't need to be a whole lot more, and then have a light carb-based breakfast. I will link a video up here to where you can find a 24-hour plan leading into your first race. Now, the second don't relates to the do number 5. It's to don't pile on as many carbs as you possibly can during the race. A really good rule of thumb is to have anywhere between about 20 and 30 grams of carbs every half hour, plus a light electrolyte drink. Just that alone is more than enough for most races, especially your first couple, which are probably a sprint or an Olympic, so you don't need tons of calories for these types of events. And having too much in your stomach, especially while all the blood is in your arms and your legs, raise my legs here, and not in your stomach, it's going to be really hard for your body to digest whatever you put in your stomach. So you gotta err on the side of caution. The third don't is to don't go all out in the race. Ease yourself back. It's a long day. Typically, successful races are done not by the person that goes the fastest, but by the person that slows down the least. So if you're going all out on the swim, you're gonna be cooked for the bike. If you go all out on the bike, your legs are gonna hate you on the run. And if you go all out in the first little bit of the run, you got a long way to go, and I can almost guarantee that you're gonna get some cramps. So think about going like 80 to 85% of your max throughout the duration of a race. Once you start gaining more fitness, gaining more confidence, knowing your pacing a little bit better, then you can start pushing the efforts. But in the first few races where you're just getting yourself comfortable, don't go all out. The fourth don't is to don't plan your transition 1 and transition 2s to be a big pit stop. Essentially, a good rule of thumb to think about how much crap you should be putting into your transition and how much you should be preparing to change over from one sport to the next in transition is if you can't do one of the things that you want to do in transition within the first little bit of the bike or the first little bit of the run, you're probably doing too much. For instance, you probably can't put on really big compression socks in the first kilometer of the run because you're running. So you know what? Don't put on compression socks in transition. If you can't have a big meal in the first kilometer of the run or the bike, don't plan to have a big meal and a bunch of calories while you're in transition. You've always got to be thinking very minimally in transition to have a fast transition and make sure that you're not doing too much and overcomplicating the race, losing time. So think to yourself, losing my notes, losing my phone. So think to yourself, what is the least amount that I can do in transition and in the first little bit of the bike or the run to get me through that next leg of the race? And if you think minimally, probably gonna do a lot better getting in and out of transition quicker. And the fifth biggest, baddest, and best don't that you should not, absolutely not ever be doing, even in my case where I'm very comfortable in the swim, is to start in the middle of the swim pack if you're worried about getting knocked around. For years and years, even though I was one of the faster swimmers, I would end up going off to the side of the swim pack because I didn't want to be knocked around in that chaos of the first few seconds of the swim. I'd let all the goofs that are ready to throw the elbows and the feet sort it all out amongst themselves in the middle. I'd swim up in front of them and get away from all that crap. And if you can't swim up in front of all that crap, stay behind all that crap, off to the side. You're gonna have a much better and probably a much faster race if you can maintain calmness in the water. The last thing you want to be doing is raising your heart in the first few minutes of the race, getting a race plan knocked out of gear because maybe you got kicked in the face or kicked in the stomach or elbowed in the jaw. This is all a part of going through the churn, and if you can keep yourself out of that, you're going to be much happier. So there you have it, triathletes. I'm sure there are a lot of first races coming up over the next few months, so I hope this helps. As always, if you've got any questions or comments about this, hit me up in the comments below or on social media. Happy and hard training, triathletes, and good luck in your next triathlon. Cool!